So our speakers today, Dr. Graham Jensen, who is Assistant Director and MyTech's Accelerate Postdoc Fellow at the Textural Cultures Lab at the University of Victoria. He's also co-lead of Research Development and Strategy on the Canadian Humanities and Social Sciences Commons. We're also joined by Dr. Ray Siemens, a Distinguished Professor in the Faculty of Humanities at the University of Victoria in English and Computer Science, and a past Canada Research Chair in Humanities Computing. And Rhonda El-Khatib is the MyTech's Accelerate and Inky Partnership Postdoc Fellow in Open Social Scholarship at the Electronic Textural Cultures Lab at the University of Victoria as well. And I want to thank you all so much for coming today.
And hi, everyone. Welcome to today's event, which, as you now know, is an overview of a platform called the Canadian Humanities and Social Sciences, or HSS Commons. Thanks so much for joining us. My name is Graham Jensen. And in the ETCL, the Electronic Textual Cultures Lab where I work, I'm very grateful to work with wonderful colleagues, including the other two who were introduced, Rhonda and Ray. But thanks as well to other colleagues who aren't present, but deserve special thanks for their contributions to this ongoing project, including Colleen Arce, Archie To, Sajib Ghosh, and Tim Sobey, among others. And just before we launch in, I'd like to give one last acknowledgement, and that is that our lab at the University of Victoria is located, and I typically work on the traditional territories of the Lekwungen peoples, including the Songhees, the Esquimalt, and Wasatch peoples, whose historical relationships with the land continue to this day. A lot of my research pertains to digital spaces, but I think it's important to recognize the significance of the spaces we physically inhabit, something I've tried to do as part of my own work on the HSS Commons, work that's very much focused on fostering respectful, positive relationships in communities of various kinds. So with that, I will begin. I'll skip over the abstract. We all know why we're here. I want to talk first about what is the HSS Commons? What is this thing we're here to talk about? So to begin, it's an academic social networking site. That's one way to frame it. Developed for academic audiences and available for free download, implementation, and adaptation anywhere by any group. And this software, which we'll be introducing and giving some brief demos of today, is based on an open source platform called HubZero, which was originally developed at Purdue University, but is now kind of managed at the University of California, San Diego. Some other examples of academic social networking sites or digital knowledge commons more generally include general knowledge commons geared towards public and academic audiences. Wikipedia is a big one here, of course. Digital commons intended to facilitate the preservation or dissemination of research data. A lot of good examples to draw on there. Distributed networks of institutional repositories. In our Canadian context, we've got Borealis. There's also Dataverse and others. And again, academic social networking sites. Others include academia.edu is a very common one, ResearchGate, Humanities Commons, and so on. So that's where we fit in. We're developing the HSS Commons in Canada, but what we're building of note can be installed and adapted elsewhere too. So part of that open source ethos means that our code, which we share, all of our adaptations via GitHub, you can take that and you can adapt it. You can stand up your own instance of this if you so wish. Our Canadian HSS Commons, our instance of this, is an open online space meant for Canadian humanities and social sciences researchers, stakeholders, and others. A space meant to enable people to share information and resources, make connections with people who have similar interests, and to build community. It's hosted on our national academic research infrastructure, and we're very grateful to them for their support. As Ray will discuss in a little bit, Compute Canada factors in heavily here and was one of our early and important partners in that regard. The Commons is supported within the framework of important national structures such as information umbrellas, like our countrywide site licensing for online academic research, a federated alliance of national societies in and across HSS disciplines, and also laws around copyright and fair use. So significantly, the Commons is hosted on Canadian servers here at UVic, which together with Canada's legal framework provides several distinct affordances and protections regarding the security and privacy of user data and user research. And now I'll hand things over briefly to Ray, who's going to talk about why the HSS Commons. So over to you, Ray.
Well, thanks very much, Graham, and thanks everyone for the opportunity to talk about this pretty dear to our heart. Graham's already answered a bit of the why, but I'll go into a tiny bit more detail here. Really, why the HSS Commons? Why not other commons? Why not join a commercial one? Why not join one that's situated in a country outside of Canada? And it's basically benefits provided by our national structures for communities of various kind, including as they manifest online. This particular project manifest first in idea form and now in functional research prototype that's being rolled out. Responds to an articulated need for digital research infrastructure by and for humanities and social science researchers in Canada particularly, but also perhaps to those beyond, which is why it can be downloaded and ported pretty much anywhere someone might want to experiment with. Most of the discussions, planning, research development happened under the auspices of the Implementing New Knowledge Environments Partnership, SSHRC funded, and I'll talk a bit more about specifically it in a moment. And related work carried on under the banner of CAPOS, not Inc., but related CAPOS, the Canadian-Australia Partnership for Open Scholarship. And both of these initiatives have the same commitment as the HSS Commons, fostering open social scholarship, involving creating and disseminating research and research technologies to a broad audience, specialists, active non-specialists, general public beyond that are engaged in what we do, in ways that are accessible and significant to everyone involved in the equation. For those interested in past as preface and how history manifests in these sorts of discussions, it's been a great discussion going for over a decade now, beginning first around partnership considerations of how an infrastructure like this might intersect with other infrastructures already in discussion and on the way amongst our Inc. partners in Canada, but also those beyond. And initial discussions took place in and around what was then the MLA and now the Humanities Commons, based in the US, Commons in a Box, and beyond. Matt Gold and Kathleen Fitzpatrick and their colleagues very much involved in those partnership early discussions around this and involved in collaboration and partnership since. By the time we hit 2015 to 2018, we were very actively involved with Compute Canada and then Canary on looking at how to implement these sorts of things, how we could make real in a Canadian context, situated in all the ways that Graham's outlined this type of thing. We've been engaged in ongoing prototyping and consultation on that foundation since. Beginning in 2020, the Inc. partnership received funding from the SSHRC Partnerships program, and we've been able to more actively engage in further research development on that platform in consultation with the partner groups through Inc. and through CAPOS, as well as individual users and new groups that have joined us since. It is not production yet. It's in beta. It's a research prototype. It's in research development, quite actively so. And those who want to join, we're inviting and supporting to join us in our partner development of this infrastructure. Our current resources under the SSHRC Partnership Grant that sustain us until 2027 and maybe slightly beyond from the SSHRC Partnership Program, it was $2.5 million for Canadian side research there, which was matched by partners across the country and into Australia and beyond through our CAPOS partnership of $2.5 million. So a significant foundation for this and other open social scholarship related work, knowing that that's taking place within a sphere, if you will, of Canadian partner estimated expenditure between $10 and $20 million in this area. 11.5 is the number we wrote in the grant. So that's what you see on the slide here. It truly is a very active partnership. This slide depicts the groups that are most actively involved, but other groups join us not quite on a daily basis, but weekly and monthly, and many individuals beyond. But we are so grateful for the opportunity to work with this partner group and those beyond in this context. And with that, and thanks for all our partnerships.
Thanks, Ray. So in this next section, I'd like to focus on what the HSS Commons does, and maybe equally as important, does not do. So on the next slide here, you'll see there are many features that I'll get into in a moment that the HSS Commons can currently do. Some that are similar to popular commercial sites such as academia.edu and ResearchGate. However, unlike these two platforms, the Commons does not track and use your information for commercial benefit and other types of activities beyond what we could consider as acceptable use. On this next slide, we have a feature comparison table that shows what the HSS Commons does do in comparison to these commercial platforms. So for example, you can do things like assign DOIs, control the level of privacy from your profile, read the site in both French and English and potentially more languages. I think Graham will get to that in a little bit. Browse the site without the distraction of any ads, curate collections from online content, in addition to many other features. Less of half of these features are offered by ResearchGate, as you'll see here, and none at all, almost none at all by academia.edu. Here I'd also like to point out to the Humanities Commons, which is a close partner, and another academic-run publishing platforms that offers many similar features to us and does not use people's information for commercial benefit. If you'd like to learn more about them, please visit their site. And there on the next slide, I'd like to go into some further details of the HSS Commons features. So you can work on the Commons as an individual, invite several individuals to work on projects, and you can also create larger groups that have many people. There are no geographical restrictions on who can use the Commons, so it can facilitate collaboration across disciplines and also across borders. The Commons also has some useful communication features. For example, you can create a web page with information about your conference rather than creating a WordPress site. You can also communicate with members of a group through the Commons via mailing lists. These can be sent directly to their Commons inbox, but also duplicated to email. One major feature of the Commons site is that it supports open access publishing and offers several Creative Commons licenses to choose from. You can also mint and assign DOIs, digital object identifiers, for permanent links to your publications via the Commons. These can be applied to articles and monographs and such, but also to data sets, podcasts, and other forms of publications. There's an option to integrate your profile with ORCID so that you can avoid duplicating entries across different platforms. A newer feature is also an integration with Google Drive to save your projects and to work from your own drive. Another exciting and more recent feature is setting up event registration and basic conference proposal collection features. So you can set up a website for your conference, reach out to mailing lists, set up call for papers, as well as submission and registration system, all within the Commons environment. I'll hand things over now back to Graham for the next part of our talk.
Great, thank you, Randa, and thank you, Ray. So next, I'd like to talk about who the Commons is for and how those people might use it. So first of all, who it's for. So it's, like I said, for researchers, stakeholders, students, but also members of the engaged public. And those different groups can access and use the site both as individuals or as groups, as collectives. There are multiple ways to interact on the site. You don't have to be a member of a group to join. Some possible use cases for individual researchers include establishing an online presence as a online business card of a kind. And as I'll point out in a brief demo afterwards, the profile on the Commons gives you full control over which profile information you want to share or hide, which is very important to us, wanting to be mindful of things like privacy and allowing people to have control over their own information. You can publish, share, and connect over research in the repository. So it's a place where you can share and publish research, but there's a social layer built over top of that, allowing you to interact with those different items in a few different ways. You can expand your network, discover and connect with members that have similar interests, share news, links, projects, and more via things like blogs or collections. You can message other people, share and store files securely via groups and projects, both of which have built-in repository space for you to use, and much more. And here is a screenshot of your profile page when you're logged into the Commons. And you can see a number of the different fields which you supply when you sign up, and how those are displayed to others if you make your profile available. But of note, you can see a few locked icons here. And that indicates some of the different ways you can close off certain fields if you don't want to make them public, or you only want to make them accessible to certain groups of people accessing the site. There are a lot of different layers of visibility all at your fingertips. So again, it's for individuals, including those who want to use the repository highlighted on this slide to publish and share the work that they're doing. And so this is an example of a publication's landing page. And so this is a publication by Randa and others. It includes a lot of the basic metadata you might expect: the title, an authorship group, a description, tags for discoverability, things like that. But also some basic metrics you can see in the top right corner: how many times people have viewed this resource or downloaded it. You can see that it's been assigned a DOI and also a Creative Commons license. And there are a lot of other features I could get into. Those are some of the main ones. One final feature perhaps is that if you see the tabs here below, you can see a versions tab. And if you click on that, you'll note that you can actually publish multiple versions of something. So it supports built-in versioning, which is really important if you're wanting to use the site to continue developing a resource after the initial publication. Which reflects, in our experience, how people in HSS actually work. So other possible audiences, in addition to some of those individual researcher kind of functions I've highlighted, research communities and other groups, whether that's specific grant-funded projects, academic societies. We've been working a lot currently with the Federation for the Humanities and Social Sciences and specific societies within it to help them develop a space for their society and their membership on the Commons. And also academic journals. There are both group features and the repository, so it's a natural fit for a lot of journals who are wanting to use this as an open access publishing space. Some possible collaborative use cases I highlighted here include creating custom web pages for building a free online presence, communicating privately or publicly with group members, storing and sharing files within your group or beyond if you want to open things up to anyone who stumbles upon your group page on the Commons, for example. You can manage events with the option to enable event registration, like Randa highlighted. You can empower group members to publish, share, and connect over research via the repository, and much more. And so just a few screenshots to kind of highlight some of these things I'm talking about in a more abstract way, perhaps. First of all, taking a look at an example group research community. We've called it very, very creatively to give you a sense of how different research communities or groups might use this space. So on the left-hand menu, you can see About Us, our research team, and Community Values and Vision. And those are custom-made kind of pages, group pages as they're called, which function like different web pages. And you can customize those as much as you want. They can be plain text, but you can also incorporate images, live feeds of events that you've set up also through the left-hand menu. And there are a lot of other features. So you can see the membership lists, create announcements, blog posts, calendar items. You can create collections, something I can talk about a bit more later. You can create forums to encourage discussion among your group or publicly. And you can create projects nested within a group, which can serve a lot of different purposes. and again, usage and files. So if you click on usage, you can get a sense of who's kind of accessing this and what kind of stats are behind that. I'm going to look now at a specific, so not just a sample group, but an actual group. And that's the Digital Humanities Summer Institute 2023 group that we used to support the event of the same name. And through this group, we had about 400 plus members join. And we used this space with a project set up for each course that we offered for the Summer Institute. And so each instructor was given a project that they could administer themselves. And they used those course projects to share course materials, communicate privately among their course groups, which was a subset of that larger DHSI registration group. And we also use this to have custom pages, which you can see on the left-hand menu here, sharing, schedule information, linking out to presentation files, things like that. Academic societies have also found the site of use, and we're really excited to be working with the Federation and a number of societies directly to see how this space might support the work that so many HSS societies in Canada are doing. So again, there are a lot of different ways that you can use this space, but you can create custom pages, sharing information about your society, communicate with society members. But also, if your society has a journal, for example, you might create a project within that larger group structure to publish or republish your academic society's journal and its different journal issues. So we've been exploring that. And some of the societies we've worked with include this list, which I won't read through in full. And I won't go through that, but again, if you want to add your society to this list, if you're part of a different group, we'd love to work with you, and that's the main message here. Do reach out, and we'd be happy to provide a demo or kind of show you some of the different possibilities in this space. Scholarly journals, again, I won't dwell on this too much, but you can use the space to publish via open access mechanisms and licensing. So some groups have been taking advantage of that, either to publish or republish existing open access materials. And here you can see a screenshot of what a collection looks like on our site. It's kind of like a Pinterest for academics feature of sorts. So if you want to collect or point externally to different resources, whether that's a website or publication, or even something hosted within the Commons in our repository, you can create a thematic collection of sorts there. And I can, again, during our kind of live demo session, walk you through that a bit more. But that's an exciting feature that some people have found really useful. And I think one of the final examples I'll point to is Early Modern Digital Review, which is a journal, an open access journal that's set up as a project nested within a larger group called the Eater Community Group. And so they've used this space to republish different reviews published by this journal in open access and promote its discoverability, the discoverability of these different publications and reviews, and encourage new ways of interacting with those resources. And just kind of in closing, before we kind of open things up and I maybe do some demos with the time that remains and we answer some questions, which I see starting to pop up in the chat, I want to just quickly go over some of our next steps for this project, which, as Ray outlined, is already years in the making with the support of many partners. So looking ahead, again, it is currently in beta, though it is a functional research-driven prototype. And we're continuing with onboarding. So again, please reach out if you'd like to try this out, take it for a spin, explore some of the different features I've outlined, or even others that I haven't gestured to. We'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to support the work that you're doing. So we're continuing ongoing consultations with others using the system, including those part of KPOS in Australia, but also many different groups in Canada. We're working on research toward further development, including in the area of platform governance issues, bibliometrics and ethical data management, platform sustainability, and Wikimedia integration, following that with ORCID and Google Drive. We're exploring also formal publication and launch of the site, and recommender and gateway features, which would open up the repository so it could point to not just materials hosted within our repository, but materials hosted in other repositories that would allow people within our site to discover materials and access them easily, but also promote the visibility and discoverability of resources hosted elsewhere. So it would benefit both us and our partners who are doing so much great work in this area. How to learn more? I'd point you, first of all, to some of the articles that we've published about this site, which also outline some of the theoretical issues behind what we do and our work on digital knowledge commons of this kind. The first two articles will provide a bit of an intro to those things. We've also published some videos, and we've shared this work in a number of different venues. So the first is a great example of that, part of DH 2020. And we've also got some how-to guides. So if you go to the hsscommons.ca to our site and click on Discover and then Blog, you can see a blog post called Make the Most Out of the Canadian HSS Commons, and listed there are a number of these how-to guides that walk you step by step through some of the main functions on the site, including, from step 0, setting up a profile, all the way through to some of the more advanced features on the site. So please do check that out. How to contact us, also important. So that's the three of us and some of our contact information. We'd love to hear from you again. And I think now I'll kind of open things up to the more informal part of our presentation, where we can potentially demo some features. If there's interest among anyone here, if you want to see me walk through any of the things that I covered in brief earlier, or we can also just discuss some of these things or handle some of the questions that have popped up. Yeah, so that's it for our slides, and I'll stop sharing there.